Hey guys and girls, this is Wager Detective here, reporting live from Harrah's, Atlantic City. Today is May 30th, 2026. We're going to get into this cap between the Detroit Tigers and the Chicago White Sox. Before we get into that, be sure to follow Wager Detective on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Set alerts on Twitter for any content that Wager Detective drops, and also subscribe on YouTube so you can get alerts set to your phone when Wager Detective drops the Wager Detective report. The Wager Detective report didn't do too good yesterday. Called the Reds. It was a plus money play, and then I called the Pirates. Both those games lost. The Pirates game was sticky. Again, I think with the cap with the Twins, I overlooked the fact that the Twins were 5-1 when Bradley started on the road this year. I thought the Pirates could have won that game. I guess looking back on it, it was a call to look towards the value instead of laying the minus 134. But I think with the over-unders, I did good in both those games, actually. So a new day. 2-0 the day before yesterday, 0-2 on the side calls yesterday, but good with the over-under. So it's either I'm good with the over-unders or good with the sides. It's never usually both. So let's get back on track. I like calling the sides a little bit better because it shows a little bit more prowess, I think, than calling the over-under. But let's get into this cap right here. Let's start with the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers are 22-36 on the year. 2-8 in their last 10. They're 4-16 in their last 20 games. When we look at what they've done versus the White Sox, they are 5-6 in their last 11 meetings with the White Sox. They're scoring 4.36 runs per game average to 3.90. That comes out to an 8.29 ERA. If we look at the last 10 at the White Sox, the Tigers are 6-4, 6 over, 4 under in those games, scoring 4.8 runs per game to 3.7. And in their last 9 day games at the White Sox, they are 6-3, 3 over and 6 under. Their opponents have scored, the White Sox have scored 2 runs or less 5 times in that split. So let's go back over this real quick. The Tigers 22-36 on the year. They're 5-6 in their last 11 versus the White Sox. They're scoring 4.36 to 3.90. That comes out to 8.29. The Tigers are 6-4 last 10 at the White Sox, 6 over, 4 under. They're scoring 4.8 runs per game to 3.7. And then in their last 9 day games at the White Sox, the Tigers are 6-3, 3 over, 6 under, and they've scored 3.22 runs a game to 2.77. All those numbers coming in around that 7.5, and it's going to be interesting to see, how this goes when we look at the cap going further. Now, the Tigers this year in road day games, they're 5-5. They're middling, but compared to their overall record, it's a lot better than 22-36 on the year. They're 5-5 in their last 10 in their road day games this year. 6 over, 4 under. They're scoring 4.5 runs per game to 3.6 for their opponents. Their opponents have scored 2 runs or less 5 times in the Tigers' road day games this year. So they've found ways to keep teams off the board in their road day games, and they're scoring 4.5 runs per game average in 10 road day games this year. So not bad. But last 9 overall, they're 2-7, 4 over and 5 under. They're only scoring 3.11 runs per game to 4.44 for their opponents. That comes out to 7.55 runs per game average over that last 9. So they're not really scoring in their last 9, but if you look at what we said about versus the White Sox, at the White Sox, day games at the White Sox, they're marginally better than that 3.11 runs per game average like they're producing over their last 9. Now, versus the American League Central, they're putrid this year. They're 4-11. The Tigers are 4-11 versus the American League Central. They were swept by Minnesota. They were swept by Cleveland. 5 over and 10 under in their 15 games against the AL Central, scoring 3.13 runs per game to 4.46 for their opponents. It comes out to 7.59 runs per game average. So against their White Sox, against their Central Division counterparts, not really playing that good. Over their last 9, not playing that good. Over their last 9, scoring 3.11 runs per game, and against the American League Central in 15 games, scoring 3.13. So they're going to have to find a way to get guys on base. Riley Green, they got some guys that we'll talk about as we get into this, that they're going to have to try to get on base, steal bases, but they're not playing good overall recently. Now, we get to the pitcher, Framber Valdez. The Tigers are 1-4 in his last 5 outings. Those games came against Baltimore, Cleveland, the Mets, Boston, and Atlanta. And in Valdez's last 5 starts, 26 and 2/3 inning, 27 hits, 16 earned runs, 4 home runs, 9 walks. That comes out to a 5.41 ERA, a 1.35 WHIP, and 1.35 home runs per 9 over his last 5 outings. Now, if we look at what he's done this year, what the Tigers have done this year when he's on the mound, the Tigers are 5-6 in Valdez starts this year. 61 innings pitched. He's got a 4.28 ERA, a 1.33 WHIP, and he's given up 0.88 home runs per 9. In Valdez's 11 starts this year, it's been 6 over, 5 under, 4.18 runs per game for the Tigers to 4.54 for their opponents in those games that he starts. Comes out to 8.72 runs per game average. And their opponents in Valdez's starts have scored 2 runs or less 5 times. So it's either feast or famine when Valdez starts on the mound for the Tigers this year for their opponents. Now, the Tigers are 2-1 when Valdez starts on 5 days rest, like he will be today. 1 over and 2 under in those games. In 3 starts for Valdez on 5 days rest, he has 19 innings pitched, given up 12 hits, 4 earned runs, a home run, and 4 walks. Comes out to a 1.89 ERA and a 0.84 WHIP. So vastly different for Valdez compared to his last 5 to when he pitches on 5 days rest. When he gets that extra rest, he looks to be a lot better than what he's doing in his last 5 outings. Last 5 outings, again, 5.41 ERA, 1.35 WHIP, 1.35 home runs per 9. But in the 3 games that he starts on 5 days rest, 19 innings pitched, has a 1.89 ERA and a 0.84 WHIP, and has only given up 1 home run in 19 innings. So vastly different in that setting. Keep that in mind. Now, against the White Sox in his career, when he's pitched for the Astros, he hasn't seen them so far when he's pitched for the Tigers, but when he's been with the Astros, his last 5 versus against the White Sox, 0-1, 0-2, 1-2, 1-3, 2-3. 2-3 were the results, 1 over, 4 under. And in those 5 outings, 2.57 ERA and a 1.21 WHIP, and only gave up 1 home run. So that's a pretty good stat line. He seems to have control and understanding of this White Sox team. I mean, we know the White Sox team's playing a lot better than we've seen from them last year. People were high on them. I think the White Sox win the division, but I do believe that if you look at these stats, 5 days rest for Valdez, the fact that they're 5-6 in their last 11 versus the White Sox, they're 6-3 in their last 9 at the White Sox during day games, Valdez being, like I said, on 5 days rest, and the fact he's got a 2.57 ERA in 28 innings pitched in his last 5 outings versus the White Sox, there's room to believe the Tigers could be a play here, even though they're 22-36 on the year and 2-8 in their last 10 and 4-16 in their last 20. You got to remember, guys, there's ebbs and flow to a season. They're going through a bad stretch. Don't be surprised if you see at some point in the year if the Tigers reel off 10 wins in a row. I mean, to really just get back into this division. And then once they get Skubal back, they got guys that can pitch over there. You got Skubal, you got Valdez, their bullpen, they got some quality starts, as we'll get into this cap. Now let's take a look at the White Sox part of this cap. The White Sox playing great this year. Before we go further, the Tigers are minus 122 in this game, and the White Sox are plus 104. The over-unders coming in at 7.5, so something to keep in mind there. Okay, so the White Sox, 30-27 on the year, 6-4 in their last 10. They're 13-7 in their last 20, and 11-6 in one-run games. They've won. They're 8-5 in home day games this year. They've won their last 5 home day games, so they've won 5 straight home day games this year, and they're 8-5 on the year in home day games. 7 over, 6 under in those games. They're scoring 3.76 runs per game to 3.31 for their opponents. That comes out to 7.07 runs per game average. And the White Sox opponents in their 13 home day games have scored 2 runs or less 6 times. Very, very important there when you're looking at the over-under. Now, the White Sox are 5-4 in their last 9 overall. In those games, 7 over, 2 under. In their last 9, the White Sox are scoring 5.77 runs per game to 4.44 for their opponents. That's a 52-40 run differential for them over their last 9. Their opponents in their last 9 have come against Seattle, San Francisco, Minnesota, and the Tigers yesterday, so where they won 4-3 on a walk-off. Now, if we look at the White Sox last 9 overall, they've scored 5 plus 4 times, and their opponents have scored 5 plus 4 times. So 7 over and 2 under to that 7.5 in the White Sox last 9 games overall. But again, we said Valdez 2.57 ERA versus the White Sox in his last 5 against them, and then Valdez on 5 days rest here, like it will be today, a 1.89 ERA on the year in 3 starts on 5 days rest, and a 0.84 WHIP. So not giving up runs, not giving up walks, and only giving up 1 home run in 19 innings this year on 5 days rest for Valdez. So even though the White Sox have looked good, their last 9, 7 over, 2 under in their games, last 9 overall. Something to keep in mind on who's going to be on the mound today for the Tigers. So as we get further into the SCAP, okay, the White Sox versus the AL Central, they are 9-3 versus the AL Central this year. They swept the Royals earlier this year as part of that record. In their 12 games versus the AL Central, they're 7 over and 5 under that 7.5, and they're scoring 4.75 runs per game to 3.77 for their opponents. That comes out to 8.52 runs per game average. In their 12 games versus the AL Central this year, their opponents have scored 2 runs or less 7 times. So 7 out of those 12 games versus the AL Central this year, the White Sox starting, pitching, and bullpen have held their those opponents to 2 runs or less 7 times. So that's case for the under. And Wager, the more he's looking at it, this is looking like it could be an under game. Now, a situational aspect of this cap is going to be a situation where every wager detective report has it, and this one is no different. The game after a walk-off win this year, the White Sox are 2-1, scoring 5 runs a game to 3.66. That comes out to 8.66 runs per game average. In those games, they won 6-3, 8-2, and 1-6. So the game after where they've won on a walk-off this year, they are 2-1, and they're scoring 5 runs a game to 3.66 for their opponents, comes out to 8.66 runs per game average. Now, when we talk about who's going to be on the mound for the White Sox, you see it on the screen there. Anthony Kay, left-hander. The White Sox are 4-1 in Kay's last 5 outings, 1 over, 4 under. Those games have come against Minnesota, Seattle, Kansas City, and Seattle was a loss. So something to keep in mind there. 4-1 the White Sox are in Kay's last 5 starts. Okay, in those last 5 starts for Kay, 27 and a third innings pitched, 22 hits, 6 earned runs, 9 walks, 3 home runs. That comes out to a 2.22 ERA, a 1.14 WHIP, and 0.98 home runs per 9. So that's certainly something to keep in mind there. And also, Kay is going to be on 4 days rest, where the White Sox are 4-0 this year when Kay starts on 4 days rest. Pretty impressive. In those 4 games, the White Sox have won when Kay has started on 4 days rest this year. 21 innings pitched, 17 hits, 7 earned runs, no home runs, and 9 walks. That comes out to a 2.33 ERA with a 1.24 WHIP. Very, very impressive. So they're 4-1 in their last 5 when Kay starts, and they're 4-0 when he starts on 4 days rest. And between both those metrics, they're almost identical in ERA and WHIP. And on 4 days rest, in 21 innings pitched, he hasn't given up a home run, so he's comfortable in that setting. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Now, the White Sox are 6-3 also when Kay starts this year. 6-3. He has a couple games where he came in relief, but when the games that Kay starts this year, the White Sox are 6-3 in those games. 4 over, all 4 games. Let me see here. 4 over and 5 under in those 9 game starts for Kay this year overall. But 6-3 overall, 4-1 in their last 5, the White Sox when Kay starts, and 4-0 when Kay starts on 4 days rest. In the 9 games this year that Kay starts, in the 4 over, 5 under, they're scoring 4.88 runs per game, 4 runs for their opponents. That comes out to 8.88 runs per game average. So that's certainly something to keep in mind there. And in those 9 games that Kay has started this year, their opponents have scored 2 runs or less 5 times. So 5 out of the 9 times that Kay starts this year, their opponents have scored 2 runs or less 5 times. That's an interesting stat line to keep in mind when you're looking and capping this game. Now let's get into the team dynamics. If we look at we're going to go in who's leading the lead in some of these categories. Batting average, you got a couple guys in the top 50 for the Tigers. You got Riley Green coming in at number 7, batting 308, and then you got McGonigal coming in at number 33 at batting 284. On the opposite side, in batting average, I didn't write the name down here. Okay. They got somebody that's coming in at number 424. Oh, team batting. Oh, batting average. They don't have anybody. The White Sox don't have anybody in the top 50 with batting average. But the Tigers got 2 guys, Green and McGonigal. Green coming in at number 7, batting 308 in baseball. So something to keep in mind there. Now, if we look at home runs, we look at Dingler. Dingler is number 34 in baseball with 11 home runs, but the White Sox got 3 guys in the top 15 with home runs. Murakami, number 2 in baseball with 20. Vargas and Montgomery both coming in at number 12 with 13 home runs apiece. So home run power definitely towards the White Sox. Now, if we look at hits, we got 2 guys for the Tigers. Green coming in at number 4 in baseball with 64 hits. McGonigal coming in at number 18 with 60. For the White Sox, they only got 1 guy in the top 50. That's Meredith. He's got 55 hits on the year, coming in at number 44 in baseball. And if we look at stolen bases, the Tigers got McGonigal, who's number 36 in baseball with 8 stolen bases. And if we look at the White Sox, they got 4 guys in the top 60 with stolen bases: Vargas, Acuna, Antonucci, and Derek Hill. 9, 8, 8, and 6 stolen bases respectively. So 17, 25, 31 stolen bases between those 4 guys. So they have the advantage there. They get on base. They're going to be able to move around. If we look at team batting, the White Sox are better. They're coming in at number 18. Tigers are coming in at number 24. We look at home runs between both these teams. The Chicago White Sox are 5th in baseball, whereas the Tigers are 24th. RBIs, we got RBIs. We got the White Sox coming in 8th in baseball, whereas the Tigers are coming in 27th. But hits, same thing. White Sox number 19 in baseball, and the Tigers 21st. And then stolen bases, the Tigers are 11th in baseball, whereas the White Sox are 11th in stolen bases in baseball, and the Tigers are coming in at number 28th. So all metrics are leaning towards the White Sox here. I mean, if we look at saves, as far as pitching saves, the White Sox are number 6 in baseball with 17 saves, whereas the Tigers are 25th with 10 saves. So overall, the White Sox have a better relief with 17 saves compared to the Tigers' 10 saves on the year, coming in at number 20, 25 for the Tigers there, respectively. We look at strikeouts. The Tigers are coming in at number 15 in baseball with pitchers with strikeouts, 470, whereas the White Sox pitchers have 462 strikeouts, coming in at number 19. So pretty good there. But if I'm going to look at this game, guys, we get into this cap, I am going to call a game where I do believe that the White Sox find a way to win. I know there's going to be regression to everything, but again, I think the Tigers know that they have to keep getting these wins. Let's take a look at the money line here and see where we're at as we are getting close to finishing this video up. Let's keep a mind on this. Cap's getting a little long. Let's take a look at MLB. MLB, where we at? Okay. You got the Tigers coming in at -120 and the White Sox coming in at +102. I got to be honest with you guys. I got to go with the White Sox here until the Tigers can show me better. Now, listen, I'm not taking anything away from Framber Valdez, but like I said, even in his last 5 starts versus the White Sox, those games he's lost, his team has lost, is 1-2 and lost 3, and he's pitching great. Listen, he's got, like we said, he's got a great ERA versus this team in his last 5 starts. He's pitching you know, 2.57 ERA with a 1.21 whip and only giving up one home run in 28 innings pitched against the White Sox. But that was when he was with the Astros. You know, but we're talking about this White Sox team now, and we're talking about this Tigers team now. Until you can show me that you have the ability to close off games and win, I just look at all these metrics that we're looking at. Like we said, Tigers 4-11 versus the American League Central. White Sox 30-27. You expect them to kind of fall off and kind of like, but I think they're playing for something here. I think as the season continues, they're going to want to show that they can put a hold on not only this division, but furthermore, when it comes to the playoffs, can we get home games in the playoffs? Can we win this division? Can we have one of the best records in baseball? And listen, even though Valdez has good numbers, and even though the Tigers play good and tough against White Sox, this is a totally different team right now. And like we said, this guy K is just absolutely fantastic, man. I mean, Anthony K is just absolutely, like I said, White Sox 4-1 in their last 5 when he starts. They're 4-0 when he pitches on 4 days rest. They're 6-3 this year when he starts overall all his games. They're scoring for him. McKay's got a 2.33 ERA with a 1.24 whip on 4 days rest. He's got a 2.22 ERA with a 1.14 whip in his last 5 outings. They're hitting the ball. They got guys that can hit home runs. Valdez, like we said, man, in his last 5 outings, he's given up 1.35 home runs per 9, and he's got a 1.35 whip. And the Tigers are middling when he starts this year. They're 5-6. And in those games that Valdez starts this year, teams are scoring 4.54 runs per game average in those 11 games. Give Wager Detective the White Sox here to continue what they're doing. I think if the Tigers were playing better, I think I would be a little bit more concerned, but they're just going through a tough stretch. And I don't think this is the team they're going to get off the schneid against, especially with the way the Tigers have been playing, how they play in division, how they play at home. Like we said, this year, they're 8-5 in home day games this year. They're playing pretty good over the last 9 overall. They're scoring 5.77 runs per game. I think they find a way to edge out this game. As far as the over-under, I do believe this game could lean towards the under. I would look at a first 5. Let's take a look at that number and see if we can't get something that is enticing. I think that first 5, if you could get a 4.5, which I sincerely doubt, I think you could have a good chance to jump on that. But I don't think you're going to get a 4.5. I think you're going to get a 3.5, and you might get a good number. Let's take a look here. First 5 innings. Let me see here. First 5 innings. Let's see what they got here. It's 3.5. I'm going to call it now. Oh no! Wow. They're going to give you a 4.5, but they're going to juice it. I like that number. I think both these guys can keep it to that. I think you could see a 2-2 game, but you're still going to cover by that half. I think you could see a 2-0 game, a 1-1 game. You know, home run maybe here or there. If I was to lean aside, I would look at the under 4.5 minus 146. The full game, a little tougher because you don't know what you're going to get with the bullpen. But like we said, the White Sox got one of the best. They got 17 saves in baseball. They're number 6. So once the guys come in after that, they got guys that can shut it down. Give Wager Detective the Chicago White Sox at plus 102, plus 108. Oh no, full game result. Let's take a look here. Let's take the White Sox plus 102 on the money line. Okay, to continue to control this series. And that's going to be Wager Detective's call here. He's going to call the Chicago White Sox plus 102. And as far as an over-under, I would lean under the first 5 innings minus 146. Under 4.5 minus 146 for the first 5. So that's Wager Detective. That's his call. That's what he likes. And be sure to follow Wager Detective on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And guys, remember, Wager Detective loves all his fans. And I'm going to talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in. I love you guys.